Hallo Marco.
Hallo. So, könnt ihr mich gut hören?
Blendend.
Ja,
Hören und sehen.
super. Was will man noch mehr?
Hello everyone and welcome. We will wait another 5 minutes and then we will start with a meetup. Hello everyone and welcome. We will give it another 5 minutes and then we will head off. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We will give it another minute, and then we will start. Tom, our first speaker, also wrote to me he's on the way, but we will anyway start with the introduction. Hi, Tom.
Hey, wir reden hoffentlich Deutsch, Englisch geht auch, Französisch nicht. Aber Zürich ist ja.
Ja, das Publikum ist relativ international. Daher ist normalerweise auf Englisch.
Ja, okay. Solange ich nichts auf Französisch sagen muss, da war ich so.
Nein, Englisch sollte passen. Let's give it another few seconds, and at 5 past we will start. Both speakers are here. This is always making me really calm and relaxed.
I'm so sorry.
So, last one, and then let's start with welcome slides. Can you see my screen?
No. Yes. No.
Yes or no?
I don't know what. Now I see a PowerPoint slide.
Okay, perfect. That's what I want you to see. So let's head off. Welcome everyone to our 38th meetup of the Power BI User Group Switzerland. This is the October edition. Today, first, before I say anything, this session is recorded. So in the Teams channel, we will later upload the session so that everyone can rewatch it who didn't make it today. And you also have access to all of the sessions of the last 38 sessions. I think most of them we recorded. So you have access to all of the sessions in the past. Then what are we going to see? What are we going to see today? First of all, I will do a very short introduction. What is new this month in Power BI? I focused only on the cloud this month. Afterwards, we have the one and only Tom Martens. He will show us in a deep dive how the multiple audiences for Power BI apps work. And afterwards, we have Biel here, and he will show us how you create custom visualizations for Power BI. Then a few general things about the meetup. So this is the big group that we have with the virtual meetup, the Zurich one. We have a few local ones. So we have one in Geneva that just had a second meetup. The next one is scheduled for end of January. And I think they are still looking for someone who is presenting. It's in person. And if you want to present, you can contact Anne. She is managing the Geneva meetup in person. And if you're interested, of course, we all would be happy if you attend in Geneva by the end of January. We have another meetup in St. Gallen. This is also in person. They already did 6 meetups. As far as I know, there is in the next few weeks, there is not another one planned, but they will continue in the new year. If you're interested to talk in St. Gallen, you can contact Renée and let her know. And she's always happy to see new people. And last but not least, we have the Power BI user group Basel. We had Monday last week, we had our second meetup. We had around 30 people, and this was also in person, directly at Hotel Victoria, directly at the main train station in Basel. The next meetup is scheduled for the end of December, so the Monday before Christmas. And if you're interested to talk there, please get in contact with me. The email addresses you will find in the slides. The slides I will upload afterwards, after the call, to the Teams channel. And in general, as I said, 19th of December, I'm still looking for someone with an interesting topic. If you're interested, feel free to get in contact with me. Then in general, as I already mentioned, we organize our meetup here in Teams. So if you want to join, you can follow the first link, the PBI Meetup Join Teams link. You have to fill out a form, and we can add you to the Teams. There are no strings attached, so we will not use this for email or anything else. It's really just that we can add everyone to this Teams channel. You can access the via browser. Most companies, it's a little more difficult in the Teams application, but in the browser, you can easily access it over teamsmicrosoft.com. And then in the top corner, you can switch to tenant, and you can switch to the Microsoft tenant as a guest. And then you will have access to the Teams channel. You see all the files, like all the recordings from the past. You see upcoming events, you can ask questions, you can post, we can interact together. That's a disclaimer for Teams. Then I will do a short introduction, what's new this month in Power BI. In the Power BI desktop, there were a few changes, but I think the highlights this month happened in the Power BI service. First of all, we have cross-tenant dataset sharing, what means we can now share our dataset, as the name says, between the tenants. Afterwards, we can now auto-generate reports, so we don't have to struggle with the data ourselves. And last but not least, we have now B2B content that is discoverable on a certain link. So now we have also shared items directly in Power BI. The first one is the cross-tenant dataset sharing. At the moment, the rollout is ongoing. And first of all, the cross-tenant sharing has to be activated in the tenant settings. There is one setting that allows guest users to work with a shared dataset in their own tenant. And afterwards, users can set this up in their dataset. So quickly to show that, I'm here first in Teams, but here I'm in my demo tenant. I first have to go to the admin portal, and then I have to activate the setting. If I find it, I should have paid attention how it's called. It's called Allow Guest Users to Work. It's this setting. I have to enable it. The setting applies for the entire organization. And after enabling it, it says it takes up to 15 minutes. I tried it before. For me, it worked instantly. So if I go to a data set of my choice and I go to the settings, I have now here the possibility to share my data set with external users. So external users that are invited from other tenants can now also access this data set when I enable it. This, I think, is a great feature if you work with external users together, and gives great possibilities if you have to share your data set with them. The next one is that you also, when you have the cross-tenant data sharing, you have access to external data. Nobody was sharing external data with me, so I cannot share this, but in your data hub, when you go to your Power BI overview, to home, you have now here a tab from external organizations. Oh, I have one. Yeah, right. Kai shared with me. So now here you have the possibility to see also data sets and workspaces that are shared from other organizations with you. That was the second setting. And then last but not least, the shared one. This was the sharing. And the third one is the automatic generation of reports. So a report can be generated automatically if I don't have the patience to build a report, or I don't know what is going on exactly. I can go to one of my data sets. For example, I can go to this data set, and when I have the report creation, I have here option to auto create reports. Power BI is then analyzing my data set, and depending on the data set, it's generating a report. This was now a big data set, so it might take a while. Now we'll go back and try it with a smaller one. Let's go to this data set, say auto create a report, and hopefully it will be a little bit faster. It is. And now Power BI was analyzing my data. It was doing a first proposal of how the report could look like. And from now on, I can share this report with my users. I could also change it if I want. I switch to edit mode. I could add another pages and could modify the report myself. But I think that's a great opportunity to start with your report. And it really gives you a nice choice if you don't have an idea about your data or if you just want to get started. These are the 3 news this month in the cloud, the biggest updates. I think they're great ones. And I think with this, I'm already finished with my introduction for this week. Now I would hand over to Tom Martens, our data platform MVP. You might know him from Min's Data Info from his blog, and he will tell us now about multiple audiences for Power BI apps. Tom, the stage is yours.
So this is always happening that I try to mute myself and things like that. And I absolutely agree with the selected 3 features. And as I was, to be honest, I was surprised that this auto create report thing did not create any yes, my screen did not create any pie charts. So 3 great features that you selected. But now what is going on? Where's my presentation?
I can see your screen.
Yes, but I cannot. I can. So I'm also able to see my screen. So this is good. And I'm also able to go into presentation mode. Multiple audiences. This is first, it works like expected. I'm currently working with 3 teams at Munich Re. And one started out new. They have not been aware that they are looking for this feature, but now they know they are. Two other teams did other things to provide content based on the same data set to different audiences. And now they are starting to rebuild their solutions to make it much, much more simple. So before I come to this in much, much more detail, and also what is this and why I'm so excited, who I am, by sharing so important multiple audience for Power BI apps. So this slide always reminds me that I'm not 20 anymore, but for my whole life I've been using or designing analytical solutions, and most of the time using Microsoft Data Platform technology. And because doing this and blogging also and speaking at user groups like today, thank you very much for Dennis for inviting me. And this earned me the Microsoft Data Platform MVP award. Now, sharing this is just an introduction. Basically, sharing is important, and from here I came to my little term that I'm using from now and then, that together we learn, together we grow, and this is about sharing. More technically, is a joint use of resources, and this helps us to provide, distribute in our talking about Power BI, distribute insights across the organization. So this is, I love using more generic definitions of terms, and this one is for sharing is really great. So if you are familiar if you are familiar with Power BI, then maybe you know the situation. You introduced Power BI, you created your first data set, one or more reports, maybe just one, and created an app. And everyone was excited. So this is, I can remember this day. It really happened. Then, after a while, people realized that it's not that simple, because there are different user groups with different needs of reporting. And the very important aspect is the same data source is providing the data. And to be more precise, maybe it's also about the same data. But here, so we have a single data source, but we have two different needs. And this 1, 2, 1 should visualize that the upper group is seeing report 1, whereas the and report 2, and the lower group is just seeing exactly the same report, but just report 1. And this solution, this creation, this configuration was not possible for the last, let's say, almost 7 years. Because it was not possible to create multiple apps from a single workspace. So then we started duplicating our data sets, duplicating reports, because report 1 are exactly the same inside the, but now they reside in 2 different workspaces. This is an absolute mess, because different versions, or the report has to be, let's say, deployed to different workspaces, and it has, if something changes, if the report gets enhanced, it has to be deployed again. So this is a mess. This could be a little bit less stressful if we are separating data workspace and the content workspace and using shared data sets. So then there is, let's say, this term is also phrased by Power BI. I don't know who actually termed the phrase or coined the phrase, a SYN report. A SYN report is a report that does not connect to the original data source, but instead connects to a Power BI data set. Then this report itself does not contain any data, but just this one. Just connects to the already created data set. This has a lot of advantages, especially if this data set contains or row level security has been implemented. Then a report developer does not no longer has to be part of the data workspace. This developer just needs read access to the data set and build permission. And then he is able to create his own reports, but also with row level security applied. So this is cool. But nevertheless, math almost is the same, because we have to duplicate our reports. This is also sometimes that gets messed up. For this reason, this is a little recap. If I'm talking about the data sets, there's managed permissions and security. Security is this row level security thing, and managed permissions is what I am able to do with the data set. And if I have build permission, this is the most misleading phrase, one of the most misleading phrases in the Power BI realm, because build sometimes sounds like if I have build permission, I can change the underlying data set. People at Munich Re always get frightened, my colleagues get frightened when I tell, then just provide some build permission. Oh, what? No. So build permission means I am able to use this data set to build my own reports. So does not mean I'm able to change the underlying data set. So until now, I was duplicating my data set. I was duplicating my reports. Maybe I separated the content from the data. Then I was just duplicating the content, meaning dashboards and reports. If there have been different audiences or different needs. And now this feature, this is from a sharing perspective, this is really cool, because this helps us to build much more simple solutions. For this reason, but I do not like the name. It's absolutely correct, 100%. It's an audience. An audience, per definition, is one user or a group or a combination of multiple single users and multiple groups. an audience is presented with content. So the term is perfect, but I consider this name of this feature really boring. The Microsoft documentation says multiple audiences are able to, or with multiple audiences for an app. Now, Power BI also can create multiple audience groups within the same app, and assign different permissions to each group. This is, it works like a charm. We are using it. I personally, we did not faced any issues migrating existing apps, but I heard that there's an issue. And for this reason, if you do not already have started migrating, and if you migrated successfully, lucky you. If you did not already migrate an existing app, do not do that. Create a new one. And do not start or try to migrate this app. So if you are asked, migrate or not. So it looks a little bit different. On the left, you see my app. It tells me it's set up, the old app experience or old app configuration experience, setup, navigation, and permissions. On the left, the new one looks a little bit different. Now it's setup, it's content what, and audience. This is a little bit different. So by rolling out this new feature, old apps will not be affected by the new feature until you actively hit migrate and update. So do not migrate if you do not have to. Start from, I think I did already mention this, but I will already mention it again. Start from scratch. If you have to unpublish your app for whatever reasons, and then create your app, then you are in the new experience. Unpublishing, creating new means new experience, and there is no way back. If something breaks, then you have to call the Microsoft support. Nevertheless, I already mentioned it, don't migrate, start from new. Last time. Unpublishing also means a new app link will be created. There's a team that has extensive documentation about a larger app. They also want to use this feature, but if they do, then there's an app, and they currently are not able to estimate how long it will take to update their existing documentation. So it's more than 10 days just updating the documentation. And this just because I want to have this feature. So this is also something that you might have to consider. How costly will it be to create a new app? Then on the left, once again, there's this old simple toggle. Whenever I want to have a report being part of my app, I just switch the toggle and then I update the app. Now in the new experience, these toggles are disabled. And if I'm looking a little bit closer to the new update or create app, there's this new content tab. If I'm publishing a new report into this workspace here, then it will be disabled by default. It will not be part, and I cannot use this toggle any longer. It's just there for the good looks. And just see from a glance or at a glance what content is included in an app. I am not a UI designer. I am not an application developer, but sometimes I see there are applications and I'm more quickly get accustomed to this application than others. And sometimes I like the design of and how it works inside Power BI or Power BI service or other applications. But most of the time I'm talking about Power BI. And this content and audience configuration thing, explicit, especially the audience thing, is you have to get accustomed to it. And now the little introduction or to this feature, it's the magic happens at this audience tab. What we see is here are the audiences. Maybe we think there are 3 or 4 audiences. So basically, if you look a little bit closer, you would think there are 3 audiences. One is called new demo, see everything, see something, and this is just hit here. Currently, because everything is in GA, it's just possible to have 10 audiences. This sounds fun. Why? I was told, as I was asking this exact question, yes, because 10 is fitting on most of the screens. And because it's a web page, the scrolling thing like that would be very costly. One reason. Second reason is they did some surveys and 10 was out of bound every time. So 10 maybe is a good guess. That there is no need for more than 10 audiences. And if there are, maybe you should rethink your application solution design. We, of course, did some questionnaires with some teams, and it looks like that they also indeed do not need more than 10 audiences. So lucky us. So this is the name of the workspace. Sorry, the name of the app. The top left or the left most left audience is the name of the audience. I was discussing migration issues with friends and also with Microsoft people, and it seems that deleting this audience is some kind of root cause for issues, because no one thinks I do not need this because I create a new audience, and it's also a little bit difficult to get an idea how this can be renamed, and because it's web, people do not try to hit it or open up a context menu, and people start or have deleted this default or this first audience. Do not. Just rename it. We will see it in a couple of seconds how this default audience can be renamed. Saying that, everything is fine. This looks good. And now I see this is something that I still do not really often use it, because my colleagues are using this in their own apps, and this thing is difficult, a difficult UI design. Nevertheless, the configuration of an audience basically should be done. So my experience is just 3 projects. Should be done in 2 steps. And first step is create your first audience, or basically create your second audience, because the first one is that one that is there. And the first step is then configure the audience, meaning who has access to this content, seeing this dashboard, this report, and this report. And if you are not already using Azure Active Directory security groups, I recommend that you now start with Azure Active Directory security groups and not use people on add people or email addresses. Just use Active Directory groups. And also you have to remember that or see that there's a little hint. Workspace users will always have access to or users that are assigned to the workspace will always have access to all the content. But this is no difference from today. Here a little idea. This is my Azure Active Directory, and it's very easy to create a new group. I call, and here I can create a security group, and we are talking about security groups, not Microsoft 365 groups. We are talking about security groups. And then I just create one, and here's my first one that I created. And then it's, oops, I hit button. And this one is, then I can add members to this group. If you have a more or less sophisticated identity management system, then these groups can be productionized, and meaning people who want to have access can request access to a group or things like that. And then it's more or less this process of onboarding new people and also offboarding people or entire groups can be very smooth. This is a little bit about configuring the audience. Here it's active directory groups, and it's also a good idea to have some kind of naming convention. So our naming convention is this Azure Active Directory group is in the context of Power BI. Power BI is the most whatever is workspace. And then there is some feature functionality, and this one here is called audience. This feature is called audience, and then there's an underscore for whatever. This is see something. It's up. I do not say that this is. I'm sorry. I do not say that this is the best naming convention, but at least there is one. So then step 2 is about hiding and unhiding reports. And from the first look of how this works, there's no hint how you can configure this unless you maybe accidentally hover over one of the reports or dashboards. Then there is a little eye, and then you can cross it out or not. If you cross it out, then this report is not visible, or this dashboard is not visible for this audience, but it's I think it's not that good. And what you can see here, right, is some kind of preview. It's nice to have a preview, especially if you have more than one report. Of course, you have more than one report. And it's also interesting or a must know. An artifact that can be controlled by audiences or provided to audiences is a dashboard and a report. It's not possible and is also not planned that a report page or even a data visualization on a specific report page will be controlled. No, it's a dashboard or a report. So this is something we have to live with, and it will not change, also not in the near or distant future. If you have a look, and this is what will happen, in a couple of seconds, we will see if we are using the app. Then there's all new demo content, see everything, see something, and an audience that is called new audience. And this is a bug because new audience was just the button where I can click. But I was promised that this bug, this new audience will be gone if this feature becomes GA. And I consider this audience as some kind of hierarchy for navigation. So it's also possible to have one security group in more or assigned to more than one audiences. And then, yeah, a question? Was there a question? No? Sorry.
I think it was just a coughing or something.
So I was thinking I hear noises, voices, not noises. Sorry. So this new audience is not an audience, it's a bug. And I consider this audience as some kind of hierarchy that lets users navigate. And it's also possible that a group can be assigned to multiple audiences. So this is a good thing. This is good in comparison to assigning a group to multiple row-level security groups roles. So now I'm going to my application. I try. Here we are. So this is my app, and I am a user. I know that I am in the role see everything. See everything is able to see all the artifacts inside this great report or this application. There's one dashboard, there's one report, two reports, sorry. And what I'm really surprised by, so this is a great looking report, but this is not about data visualization or things like that. This is about multiple audiences. And if I right click on North America, then there is this drill through, or maybe you are aware of this feature, cross report drill through. I see this page one. So meaning I can move or navigate to page one in report two because I have the proper rights. But now let's go to the workspace and see this a little bit more detail, how this looks like and feels like. So everything is grayed out. If I publish a report to this workspace, this report will be disabled by default. I go to update app. Nothing has changed here in comparison to the old experience, but now I go to content. A really, really blank something. And if I go here, yes, I can see a preview. Unfortunately, this is also something that does not exactly match the appearance. This is a reduced preview, but nevertheless, if there are if there's a really great number of reports, then this preview is good. But for what I'm trying to do is, I guess, could be different. And now I can add link or a new section or a report. Currently, all my reports in this workspace are also, or content is also used for this app. And this is quite cool. But this is also something we have to get used to. I can also add a link, as I said, or a new section to structure my reports. Audience is very simple. Once again, I see my preview. Now I'm here. And now there's this new demo content. This is the name of the app. My recommendation is not to delete it. Just double click and rename. So context menu does not work. Double click and rename it and make this the first audience. And then you can easily remove already existing members, remove members groups that should not see what you configure here. but do not delete the default. Do not delete it. Then basically here's where the magic happens. Step 1, I added an ID group, see everything, see something. Is this group something that I did not mention during my presentation? Is it advanced thing? Here I can configure different permissions for different audiences. This is also something that has not been possible in the past. For example, I can create an audience that is called See Everything and Build. So then basically both groups have the same, see the same content, but one just a tiny minor group or part is also able to create their own reports because they inherit the build permission. This is simple. This is the advanced feature. And now if I'm over, this is when I hover over this, I can hide or unhide this report. And this is something that if you are not aware of this, then maybe you will ask yourself, how can this be configured? But then everything is done already. I just have to update my app and it works. It really works. So this is something when you pending changes, continue, yes, no, cancel. Now I cancel. Now I continue. But maybe this is something that you have to be aware of what really happens. And now we see this guy here. This is here I'm using the Power BI app on my desktop. So it's not Power BI desktop, it's the Power BI app. I am connected to this app as someone else. This guy here is called Tom Martens. The other guy is called Thomas Martens. So it's different people, indeed, more or less. And what we see here we see just indeed the dashboard and the report. This tile here is coming from the report 2, where I do not have permission for. And this report doesn't exist, or you don't have permission to view it. So this is what it's telling me. And what I really love is that it's so fast. It's not that slow. What I really love is that when I open this drill through menu, that I, as a user who's not able to navigate to report to, that I do not see this. To be honest, I was expecting this navigation thing, and then if I try to navigate, there's a message or a failure or things like that. No, I do not see this. And I was positively surprised that this is considered. So this is really cool. And maybe if you are not aware of this feature and now you are considering how to separate or distribute your existing reports, maybe this feature that is called cross report drill through will become maybe one of your best friends in designing a new navigation experience. Coming back to my slides. So basically this is the demo. I just can tell it works as expected. So this is, where's my presentation? There I see my presentation. presentation mode. So we can create, so this is really from my experience, this is a really, really useful feature. And now my solution design looks like the solution design, application design from day one. A single workspace, more or less. Basically two, data and content. This is always a good idea. And now, but I have multiple audiences. I do not need any longer to duplicate my my reports. My experience is also that people do not like to write ducks, and for this reason try to avoid everything that maybe helps them from not writing ducks. And multiple audiences is one of these features that maybe helps to write less duck scripts. But multiple audience does not replace row-level security. This is multiple audiences is not a security feature. This is, please keep this in mind. If you provide build permission to the data set, then a user is maybe just having access to more or less pre-built reports, but having build permission to a data set without row-level security means he can create his own on all reports she does want to. And then the configuration has to be done in one go. What does he mean? It's not possible to save a certain state without applying this to the current app. So what I'm talking about is this. Going back here, sorry. Now imagine there's a workspace like this one here that has 30, 40, or maybe just 10 reports. And each report has more than one page. Then you go here. You are here. You have added all the necessary reports, dashboards, and things like that. Go to this audience thingy. Start configuring your 8 or 9 or maybe just 2 audiences and have a lot of reports here. And then looking at this one, oh, this is beautiful. And then you ask yourself, why? What is this report about? This report is, or this visual that is not supported for the previous thing, is one of the ML AI visuals. So these are not supported in preview. Of course it works, but here we are in preview. If you are facing such an issue, maybe you are tempted to click somewhere else on a workspace or wherever, but you leave this. Maybe you will getting asked pending changes, blah, 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 and you maybe just hit continue and then you're somewhere else. And this is the moment where your current work, your current configuration, and this can become tricky if there are more than 2 audiences that have to be configured, and if there are more than 3 artifacts. Then the temptation might become that you want to leave the page. Don't. Open another tab, connect once again to Power BI app, app.powerbi.com, look up whatever you do, but stay on this page until you hit update app. I was going mad about this because it hit me 3 times, and I was becoming really mad because it was not. I lost more than 1 minute, to be honest. So, but with that saying that, I'm done with my presentation because, as you already see, the final slide is thank you much for attending. Hopefully, you liked this. This is one of my favorite features. And now I'm coming back and stop the presentation, stop sharing. Not sure if there are any questions.
Thank you very much, Tom. That's a good point. Are there any questions? If yes, then feel free to ask them.
Yes, I would have a question, and the question is that this feature is not in general availability at the moment.
Yep.
And so what was the decision like to use this feature which is not in general availability?
So basically, general availability does not mean it is not in general availability. Does not mean that this feature is not supported by Microsoft. It might change, and hopefully it will change in regard to the UI. So also my colleagues are saying, this can become confusing how it looks like with the previews, things like that. So hopefully this UI thing will change, but the functionality hopefully will not, because it works as promised and it works as expected. Reason for using a feature that is not in general GA is because of the size of the audiences that has to be configured. And also, so we have been in need to create or use this feature. And also another point that makes us easy for us to use features that are not in GA is because we are a larger client. So we are closer to support team. Sometimes we think we are not, to the Microsoft support team. And so I am not hesitant to use non-GA features, of course, depending on the feature, if they are not in GA. I do not hesitate to use this in production environments in general.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? If not, thank you very much, Thomas, for the presentation. I like this feature very much. And to be honest, today I gave a training, and then I've seen that all the, including an app, is grayed out. And I was like, why is it grayed out now? This was not like this in the past, but I didn't connect it with the new app. So now I also learned something very interesting that I was struggling.
So Dennis, I had the same feeling just a little bit earlier. So not today, but why do I? Because someone else already upgraded the app and then had to ask, and I was so confused that it was grayed out. So
Exactly the same at my place today.
so then, thank you, and I'm really happy for the next presentation.
Absolutely. For because we announced it, Tom. Thank you, Tom. A special thanks because Tom jumped in 2 days ago. Originally, Chris Webb should have presented today, but he was in a conflict of appointments that he couldn't move. And Tom really came last minute. So special thanks again for this. And it was totally worth the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
And now I would move on to Marco. Marco, I don't want to waste your time. So feel free to start. Your topic is create custom visualization for Power BI. The stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. So today we will have a look a little bit how we can create custom visuals for Power BI. So I will just share my screen so you can see everything. Okay. Let's go to presentation mode. Yeah, so custom visuals. So if we work with Power BI, I think we work with our visuals every day. So sometimes we are in a point where we can't really visualize what we want with the visuals we have, and then we need other visuals. And for this case, we can use a build custom visuals. So about what are we going to have a look at today? We will just start with visuals in general, then we will go a little bit to the question when exactly do we need these custom visuals, and then we have a look how to create a custom visual also with a small demo. So we all work with Power BI and think this visuals we all know really good. So we have these 38 visuals which are standard from Power BI, but this are not the only visuals we can use in Power BI to visualize our data. So we have also the App Store, which gives us access to a lot of other visualizations with about 450 visuals. I think there are a lot of good visuals, some not so good, but yeah, with this kind of visuals, we can have a lot of possibility to visualize also stuff which we can visualize with our standard visuals. But these two are the most common visuals way how we can get visuals, but we also have more than just these two. We can also import visuals as a Power BI, the PBI Viz file. So we can just go to custom visual developer, or we also can use a custom visual builder like Charticulator. So just small questions for you. Did somebody of you already use Charticulator, and what was your experience with Charticulator? Does somebody want to share his or her experience with building a visual with Charticulator? Okay. Yeah, so if this is not the case, so I usually don't really like to work with Charticulator because it is a nice tool to build something really easy and to build it for one case. But as soon as we are building something which is a little bit more complex, which is not just for one case, you see that it's not flexible enough. So it's a nice tool to start, but it's usually not a tool which is you can create a visual which is really complex and you want to have really detailed analysis of your data. We also can create visualizations with our consoles, which we have integrated into Power BI, and we can use the R or Python console to create visuals. But we also need to remember that if we create a visual with know it from Power BI, it's just a plot, it's not interacting with the rest of the report. Yes, we can filter data with the filters or the other visuals, but the plot from this console is just a plot, and it's not communicating or interacting with the other visuals directly back. And this is usually not that big of a deal, but this interaction between all the visuals is one of the most important features of Power BI. So if you're used to work with Power BI and then we see a visual which is not reacting with the other visuals, it's quite strange. So it's usually not that great for the end user to use. And the last one is we can also create our own custom visuals. We are building a visual, which is a HTML visual output, and now this backdrop with it is just a plot with the console visuals. We don't have this anymore. Now we can build a visual which is interacting with all the other visuals, like the visuals we know from the standard visuals and from the visuals from the App Store. And at the end, we can also add this custom visual in our visualization tab, so we can use it as if it be just a other visualization tool. So before we go ahead, we have some. We always need to ask us a little bit some question, and sorry, wrong. And how often do we really need these visualizations from the App Store? And if we use them in a report, is this really needed, or could we also build our report without them? And the last question is, how often do we get to a report where we really are not satisfied with the visualizations which we are using, so that we would like to have another one, but we can find visualization in the App Store. We can visualize this with the common standard tools. So it was a small here. We'll give you this, copy this link so we can just answer the question here. Now, as you can see that I can't really send you a message. Okay. It's a little bit sad. Okay.
Can I help you with this, Marco?
Yeah, can you send messages? So just send
Yes,
you
you have
the
to be.
link. Yeah, if you're, yeah, I can send you the link so you can just
I
add
will
this.
post it.
Can also send you the second link, which is for later.
I send it in the chat, but only members of the group can see the link in the chat. So these ones can click, and otherwise we have to type it.
Okay. Yeah, here you see the form. It's a short one, but it's not that important. But in general, I think we will agree that we can build our visuals usually just with the standard visuals which we have in Power BI. The visualizations from the App Store are nice to have, give us more possibilities, but we don't really have to use them. And if we put the case that we are getting to a report where we really can visualize what we want just by using the standard visuals, we or with the app visual, it's really rare. So it is not that often that we really need to have this custom visuals, and therefore we always need to remember this. So let's just have a look at the answers from the, that's the wrong one here. So the answers coming in. So we see that yes, so people in general are using the other visuals, but we see here it's not that we use them so often. So we have some people which are using them often, and most just rarely. You also see that a lot of people say they just need to have them. So we see this here, and also see that there are some people which really are searching for custom visuals because they can't really build the reports without custom visuals. So if we have 25% of more of your reports which you would like to have other visuals, I think you are really in a specified area, because I think a lot of stuff, a lot of the data you can visualize with the existing visualizations which we have from in Power BI. So let's go back to this one. Come on. So when exactly do we need custom visuals? So we can use custom visual if we want to visualize something which is really specified, and we can visualize it with the general available visuals from the App Store or from the standard ones. When is this the case? Usually it's if we have internal standards which we want to have in our reporting, or there are any legal requirements which give us areas where we need to exactly have something like they want, or just if we are working in a really specified field where we want to analyze something which is really rare, and then sometimes we don't have visuals for this. Usually it's more so that we are switching from one reporting system to the other, and then yeah, the question comes up, why can't I visualize this? This was possible before, but it's not possible now. Usually it's possible, but it's just not exactly the same visual, or your boss comes to you and says, I have seen this in a book, I want to visualize the data exactly like this. Yes, we can do this with custom visuals, and but we need also to keep in mind that we could also visualize the data with the standard visuals, and it's mostly possible also to do this with them. The second possibility to use custom visual, and I think it's also the more interesting one, because it's not that what you think about if you hear custom visuals. We can also use custom visual to give people in our companies the access to advanced analytics tools. So we can build visuals which are analytics tools and are working on top of our existing Power BI infrastructure with a no interface which our user know to use. And this gives also the basic end user access to high-end analytics. And usually it would work. So I want to have analyzing this data, and it's something which I can really do just with DAX or in Power BI. So I would go to the data scientist, and he will build a script to analyze the data, and then you will get a report with this. And yeah, if you want to change something, you have to go back and forth with your um, a data scientist or data analyst. And if you have to change a lot of stuff, or you want just to have new data, always to if I always to go to this guy, it's really annoying and it's time consuming. If I build this as a custom visual, I have built this once and then I can give it to the end user. He can analyze his data and he is completely free. And for Power BI, we can just use this. So before you really start to consider custom visual, you really need to think about this question. So is it really, do I really need it? Is it not possible to analyze the data with other techniques like tooltips, drill throughs, and so on? And a really important area is also how often will I use it? Is it just for once? Okay, I can just build a script and then I have this data in there and can visualize it and finished. But if I will use this quite frequently, and I can also use this for other areas. Custom visual could be good for you, but in general, you usually can visualize your data with the existing visuals. Because at the end, we are developing the custom visual small software. So if we build this, it's usually yeah, not that fast. So it can quite fast become a big effort. So we can build a small custom visual in a day. But if we want to go a little bit further, we want to also add error handling and so on, then it quite quickly becomes a larger project, and this can be quite costly. And we also need to keep in mind that Power BI has also its limitations, so we can't do everything with Power BI. So how do I build a custom visual? If you see here, this is the system for the integrations between the user, the visual, and Power BI. So it looks really complicated at the first glance, but if we work with the tools which are given us by Microsoft and other providers, this is quite nearly everything of this is automated. So just to develop a custom visual to work on this interframe, it's it's not that hard as it looks at the first glance. So we can build these custom visuals with two languages. So we can use R or TypeScript. So you're completely free in this, and Microsoft is pushing for TypeScript, so because it's their language, and if you search for documentation, for a long time you found nothing about this, but I think in the last half year, I think there's new documentation from Microsoft, but it's everything just for the TypeScript custom visual. But we also can do this in ARM. And because most of the people which work with Power BI, I would say, are coming from the data analytics side or from business side or statistics, and less from software engineering and so on, it's quite possible that you feel more better with R because you're used to use R and TypeScript is a new language for you. So you can choose between them. I usually build the custom visual with R, so we'll have a look how we can build this custom visuals with R. So before we can start to build the visual, we need to install some stuff and prepare our environment to work with this. So we need to have Power BI desktop. And in our case, if we build this custom visual with R, we need to have also installed R on our computer, it should be at least version 3.4. This is also good. And then we need to install Node.js. So Node.js is our framework where we use to build these custom visuals, and Node.js also give us the toolbox for this. We can install this by uh, typing in np install g Power BI Visual Tools, and so we can install all the packages we need to build custom visuals. Also, we need to install some certificates, so this secure socket layer, so that it is possible to communicate between our custom visual and Power BI and Power BI service. To develop the custom visual, we should also have AD. I usually use Visual Studio Code and RStudio, but I think it's working quite fine with all the big IDEs, so you can choose your favorite. And really important, we need to install all the R packages we need for our visuals, otherwise we can't really work with it. So we have installed all the prerequisites, and now we want to begin to develop our custom visuals. So first, which we need to do is we need to build this project, and this project can be built by using this PBI-is package from Node.js, and this builds us the entire project in the background, so that we just need to change the code in some areas to get started and build our custom visual. We can set up also a development server so that we can see how our visual is progressing during the development. So we can have a development server which then is communicating with Power BI service, and so we can see live what we are doing. But I usually don't use this, but it's just you need just to know that it's possible if you are developing a really big and really important custom visual for your company. You can also use this to preview the custom visual. And we already talked about the project, and this is the project structure which you get from Node.js. So we have different scripts. We have a lot of scripts here, but actually we just need to worry about the scripts which are here. Let's start from the bottom. At the bottom, we have the R script. This is the script where we will program all our visualizations. And this is also one of the main scripts. The second most important script is this capabilities JSON. In this script, we are defining how the input is handled, the capabilities, and also the properties of the Power BI visuals. So what exactly are these? So if we are talking here about these capabilities, we are talking about all this one, what you see here. So if you have here a standard visual, this is just a a stacked bar chart. Standard, you see here your data inputs and also all the format areas. So let's just add some data so that we can also see this one. So we have here all this formatting elements for the visual in general, and all this which we see here now, we can define here in our capabilities JSON. So this is a really important area. So because this is the way how it communicates between Power BI and your script. And now the question is how it communicates between Power BI and the script. So with this JSON file, we're just given the structure, how this have communicate. And now with this settings TypeScript script, we are also giving the settings and how it needs to communicate between these two files. This is a usually just a few lines, but yeah, if you're not used to use TypeScript, so like I am, sometimes it's this one quite hard, but yeah, usually it's quite easy. And then at the end, we also have the logo, really important. At the end, we want to have a icon logo for our custom wishes so that we can select this and add it to our report. Then we have also this tool here, this Power BI PBI with JSON. This is just an information script which has all the information about the visual in it, and this is just important because you need to fill this out, otherwise you can generate a custom visual. And then we have here also the dependencies for everybody which has already worked with R or Python or programming languages. You usually work with packages and libraries, and Power BI needs to know which packages or libraries do you use for your custom visuals, and this is all defined here in this one. So before we are going into the details how we implement this, we need to have a look at the approach. We now have seen the different files which are generated for our project, but we need to start way earlier. So we start with just define the requirements for the visuals. Then we need to determine the input and the visual settings. So this inputs and visual settings we need to determine so that we can add them to the capabilities JSON so that it's implemented then to work with Power BI. Then we also go ahead and build a bridge between these capabilities and our R script, and then we can start to really develop our R script visuals so that we can visualize at the end something. The other ones are just small steps. So we add the information about the visual, then we change the icon, and at the end we can publish our visual, and so we can give access to all our user to these visuals. We can give access to the user to the visuals by a file, so we can generate a PBI with file, or we can also add this to our App Store and publish this as a organizational visual, and this is usually how you would distribute this visual into your organization. So let's have a look at the scripts which are auto-generated, and then we will have to work in it. So the first one is here, this script, the R script. We have three areas where we load our libraries. Here at the top, then we can have area we can develop our visual, and then the last area is where we give this back to Power BI. It is saved as a HTML widget. So this is the only way Power BI can visualize this in the report. About the capabilities we already talked about, there we can define objects, and objects are all the filters, the drop downs for the formatting, and so on. And so here we also need to define how it's interacting with Power BI. So does it filter back and so on, or does it support tooltips and so on? If we are really building a full-fledged solution, this gets really complicated really fast, but we can keep it quite easy if we are just remaining with some format options and some data handling. For the data handling, which we also are building in these capabilities, JSON is important. We see here we have these data roles. In this case, we have just one. Then we have here the values, and we can also give them how they need to handle this. So I can say it needs to be grouped. It can be a measure. It can a measure or grouping. And I also can define what kind of data type should this input have, and also how many measure or columns I can add. Here we see an example for this. We have here just the basic with just one input, values. So we see here one data role, here values, and this is built here how it should handle the input. And here we see how you could build one with two inputs. So we have the data role, which is X and Y. And then we see here in the data view mapping how we can create one to group both together so that we can build a visual. So we say here, we have here a table with rows, and then it should select through the X, and then it should select through to the Y inputs and build a data frame. Now we need to also add objects, and objects are a little bit more difficult than just data inputs, because for object we need to build the bridge between the capabilities and the set and the R script. So here we see how we can add just a drop down for colors. We have here an object which is a color object, and it's called just color minus and color plus, and you can see here in Power BI it would look like this one. And these objects are just created as a class here in TypeScript, and here we need to give defaults and so on, so that we can give this information from Power BI to our script, in this case an R script. But this is not enough, still not enough. We need also to add a little bit of error handling into the R script, which you can see here, because otherwise if there is nothing selected, it will crash. So we need to add default values also here. Otherwise it would crash quite fast. And this is, I think, my favorite script, because this is the easiest one, the PBI with JSON, where we just have to add some information about the visual so that we know from where and who built this, and then we can create our visual. If we want, we can also change the icon. Important to remember here is that the icon needs to be 20 by 20 pixel, and it can be bigger, otherwise you couldn't display this here. And you see here, this is how it would look like in Power BI. This is just a small overview, but let's just look at the DEA. So think the most, if they think about DA, they think about this one, but no, we're not talking about this. We are talking about data development analysis, and this is a technique to determine the efficiency. If you have here a look at how we calculate data development analysis, is talk about efficiency. Efficiency is output divided by input, but if we are analyze this a little bit more deeper, we see here, these are the formulas to calculate the efficiency if we use this DEA analysis. This DEA analysis is good because we can compare multi-dimensional input and output and get one single efficiency score, so we can compare different units across the whole world and get one efficiency score, because efficiency score is not just um, money value, it's all we can have a lot of different inputs and outputs which have different units, and this makes it quite difficult to compare and get a good efficiency score, and DEA is one possibility how you could get to one of these efficiency scores. And we get the visual like this, and let's open this so that we can have a look at how this looks. So in Power BI, this is basically the custom visual. We see here, we get the values and see the efficiency also for this department. So see this departments are quite efficient. We have a 1, and then we see here this department 7 is less efficient, and we see the efficiency score is not that great, but there are even worse efficiencies. So here we see in which direction with this. Here we can see also in which direction we should move. So the department store 7 should move in the direction L5, although in the direction of the department 5 to get a better efficiency score. But we have here just a standard visual which we can use. We have here different inputs, just decision units, which are called dumps in this case, input and outputs. And also we have here the possibility to change between how we want to have to analyze this. We can use different optimizing algorithms, and also we can change the way how we want to optimize it. We can change this from input to output oriented, or we can also calculate the efficiency graph, or we can also change it to a mix between input and output efficiency. So we have here a lot of possibility to choose between the different types. If we open Visual Studio Code, we see how this is generated, and we saw the formulas to calculate this, and I wouldn't really know how to calculate this in DAX, because you also need to have a solver, and I don't think that DAX gives you a solver. Now the question is, how many lines of code does this need to do this analysis? So if we have a look at this R script, we see it's not that much. It's just 34 lines, and the code which we need to really write for the analysis is just this one. So it's really a short code, but it gives us an output which would take us a lot of more effort with DAX, or also with if we would do the same in Excel. And what gives us the possibility to do this efficiency, it is this library. So with libraries we can build this quite fast. What do we need to keep in mind if we are working with libraries? So at the end, this should work in Power BI, and so it should also work in Power BI Service. On our machine, we can just install libraries, but it's a little bit more difficult to just install a library on Power BI Service. And so we need to always check if these libraries are also supported by Microsoft on Power BI Service. And I think at the moment there are more than 200 libraries supported. So the possibility that the libraries you need are supported is quite high. What you still need to check. We also see here, if we go to the capabilities, how the capabilities are built. So we see here, we still have these data roles. We have now not just one or two, we have three. These DUMs, which are required to be text or integer, and the preferred data type is text. We see here the second one is the input, is still grouping or a measure. And we see here that now we can't add text column because it defines it needs to be an integer or a number. The same for the output here. And now here we see how it loops through the data to generate our data frame in the background. So we have the DUMs, which is the grouping element, and then we get the input for this and the output for this. So at the end, we get one big data frame to send back to our JSON file, to our R script. Then here we see the objects. We are just using these drop downs here, and these are drop downs is once the DA technology, and here we see the inputs which we can choose from and the values we write back to our custom visual to use in the script. Here we see the same for the DA orientation. So see here, this is the first one and this is the second one, and here we can also get the inputs to give more information to the R script. Let's go to the last one, to the settings, and here we see still this settings file is still really simple. It's just a few lines. We need to have here this DEA technology and DEA orientation classes, which we need to be exported to the Power BI, to the R script, and for this is this line and this line. So at the end, we generate this new visual, which gives us the possibility to calculate and compare efficiency between different entities or decision-making units. And so we can give everybody which wants to analyze this access to this without any coding knowledge or any knowledge about how you could do this in Excel. If it is way easier, so we can also use the already existing infrastructure which we have in our company. Okay, are there any questions at the moment?
Otherwise, in the chat, Frederick was writing, nothing can replace Zebra BI.
Yes,
And,
Zebra BI is.
And he wanted to add if he loves to answer to a customer, if I cannot show it, you don't need it.
Yes, this is really true. I would say 99% of the cases you could just visualize it with the standard visuals. Just sometimes if you have higher ups which really want to see something in exactly this case, or you want to give to your end user this analyzing tools, you can okay. Yeah, if there are no further questions, thank you, and yeah, have a nice evening.
Thank you very much, Marco. I think it was a really good introduction to this really complex topic. And I think you presented it well. Hopefully not too technically, but I think that's also a little bit the idea behind here.
Yes, I I try to keep it as easy as it possible. So with this information, you could try to start your first custom visual, but yeah, from there to a real custom visual with especially all the error handling and all the inputs, it can get quite difficult. And yeah, a small custom visual can fast grow to a few thousand rows of code. So yeah, lines of code. Good. Okay. So
So I'm
Dennis,
back.
you're back.
Frederick asked, yes, if I'm driving. No, I was not, but I was about to leave from a customer. So I had to leave the building before 6. That's the reason I was in the car. And now I will do it standing in the sun. But thank you very much, Marco. I really enjoyed your presentation. This said, I will close up our meetup. So I will quickly share my screen. Let me know if you see it. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can
Yes.
see your screen.
Perfect. Then thank you very much, Marco, for the creation of custom visuals for Power BI. Then the reminder for the future meetups. They run monthly from 4 to 6 and always at the first Thursday of the month. And next will be on 3rd of November. And we have 2 guests again, and again, high quality guests like this time. It will be Pragati Chain. She didn't decide on a topic. She is trying a new one, but she will let me know in the next days. And Nikola Ilic will be here with lessons learned from optimizing enterprise data models. I think the quality is again very high. 2 MVPs that really can present also. So I would be happy to meet all of you next month. And except for this, we're at the end of our meetup. Here are a few more links to join the teams, to attend the calls, and to the meetup website. As always, our Power BI resources, you will find this in the presentation I upload. And then we're finished for this meetup. If there aren't any questions, I wish all of you a great evening and hope to see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.